Hello, my name is Piper, and I'm doing my presentation on antimicrobial resistance, focusing on antibiotics. Antimicrobial resistance arises when organisms that cause infection evolve ways to survive treatments. The term antimicrobial includes antibiotic, antiprotozoal, antiviral, and antifungal medicines. Resistance is a natural biological phenomenon, but it is increased and accelerated by various factors such as misuse of medicines, poor infection control practices, and agriculture. This is a big concern for antibiotics. Many of the medical advances in recent years, for example, organ transplantation, joint replacement, cancer chemotherapy, they all need antibiotics to prevent and treat bacterial infections that can be caused, by the treatment. Without antibiotics, even minor surgery and routine operations could become high-risk procedures if serious infections can't be treated. And also, a lack of new antibiotics being discovered only undermines efforts to combat the problem. Okay, I'm just going to get into a little bit about, the action of antibiotics. Just briefly. So antibiotics can be synthesized from chemicals and also occur naturally in things like mold. They can kill and neutralize bacteria by interrupting cell wall synthesis. They interfere with ribosomes of bacteria and prevent them from making needed proteins. And some antibiotics break apart the DNA of some bacteria, causing their death, all while leaving human cells unharmed. Resistance happens when bacteria possess genetic variations that allows them to survive the antibiotic. With high antibiotic use and misuse, it can increase what is called selective pressure, aka survival of the fittest, and causes bacteria to evolve. So selective pressure for the survival of the resistant bacteria, they are able to multiply rapidly, giving rise to more number of resistant bacteria. And they can also transfer their resistant gene to susceptible bacteria. One resistant bacterium among millions of bacteria cannot cause harm, but the problem is when it transfers its resistant gene to another bacteria, ultimately making resistant bacteria majority. The bad bacteria plus all the good bacteria in your body is killed like normal flora. So when all the good bacteria is killed, it gives way for the resistant bacteria to take over. Okay. Let's just do quick mechanisms of resistance. One is decreased permeability. Resistant bacteria make their membrane less permeable to prevent the entry of antibiotics. An example is resistance is shown by some gram-negative bacteria towards beta-lactam antibiotics. Another one is the efflux pump. In some bacteria, efflux pump is developed when antibiotic enters a cell, which throws the antibiotics out of the cell. This type of resistance is seen in tetracycline-resistant bacteria. And then also altered target. Some bacteria become resistant by modifying the target on which antibiotics bind and act. For example, when the structure of a penicillin binding protein, PBP, is altered, penicillin can no longer bind to that protein, making the penicillin ineffective. And all of this resistance leads to superbugs and multi-resistant organisms. And I'm sure we're familiar with methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, and vancomycin-resistant enterococci. All of these bacteria are resistant to the most commonly used antibiotics. Okay, ways for them. Oh, wait, did I go to this one? Okay, yeah, there's MRSA. Okay. Ways for how antibiotic-resistant bacteria spreads. Okay. It spreads just like any other germ or bacteria through poor hygiene and sanitation. But the resistance spreads by using antibiotics carelessly. For example, taking an antibiotic that doesn't target that specific bacteria, taking the wrong dose or the duration, not taking it long enough, or too much time in between doses. And the big one is not taking the full course of antibiotics because you feel better. And using antibiotics for viral diseases, these types of misuses lead to the rise of the resistance. And non-medical uses, which I'm going to get into, is huge. A huge contributor to antibiotic resistance is the agricultural sector and livestock. Antibiotics are given to animals for disease prevention and growth promotion. And these antibiotics expose large number of animals and bacteria for an extended period of time at low doses. And the resistant bacteria reside in the animal's gut, and this gets passed on to us when we eat the meat. Another process is the feces of these animals can contaminate water or fertilizer, which are used on crops and get passed on to us when we eat those crops. Okay, ways to prevent the spread. Okay, first is prevent infection. Infection can be prevented by immunization. Vaccines increase body's immune system and decrease resistant pathogens. Less use of IV line and catheter also helps prevent infection in hospitals. Diagnose and treat effectively. Patient samples should be cultured in labs to isolate and identify the causative organism before you prescribe the antibiotic, so it's being targeted to the right bacteria. Use antibiotics wisely. Patients should be given the right dose of antibiotics for the right duration. Patients should be informed why full course of antibiotics is necessary. Patient education. Focus should be given to treat the infection, not the contamination. Stop antibiotic therapy when unnecessary. If antibiotics is being used and is found to be ineffective against that causative organism, it should be stopped. And sometimes antibiotics are prescribed prior to the culture reports. So that's why, you want to have it in a lab culture first before finding out, before prescribing that antibiotic. And prevent transmission of pathogens. So the patient should maintain proper hygiene and sanitation. Hand washing should be promoted between healthcare workers and patients. Direct contact with patients should be avoided to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. And lastly, mainly for sure, for me, is buy organic products, especially meat, fruit, and veggies, and support organic farming by buying everything organic. Okay, and that was my presentation. Thank you.